welcome in.
Welcome.
Hi guys, how's it going?
Not bad. Nice to see you after a little while. Nice to have you
Yeah.
Look
back
who
on
we
again.
have, everybody. We have Ezra back
Ezra for
after
Liberty.
after a couple of
We
months.
we
So
had a
Yeah.
great time last time. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
so we're bringing him back on. So how's everything going on for you, Ezra?
Everything's going all right. Things have been going pretty well.
Yeah.
Can't complain.
That's good.
Mm.
So
Well, we
tonight,
brought you back. Oh, go
oh,
ahead, Andrew.
no,
You reel us in.
Tonight we're going to talk about economic history and the sexual marketplace, two of our favorite topics.
Okay.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Especially those people that intertwine through our Martin Goldberg piece.
Yeah. So
Nazis and sexual marketplace.
yeah. Happy Halloween.
And if you're really
Yeah.
lucky, we might discuss Ed Gein.
Yeah.
That's,
What?
These are topics that couldn't get me into any trouble at all.
No.
well, let's not do that though. We
Let's
might get in
We're all
way
gonna
too
get
much trouble.
We'll get in the weeds.
We're-
We'll get in the weeds.
We're all going to get physically removed, so to speak. That's what happens when you have bad neighbors.
Well, I mean, if someone's gonna physically remove me, I'm gonna
Mhm.
physically remove them back. So it's all good.
Yeah.
I'll fly in on my attack helicopter and blow them away in their large, gigantic mansion
Well,
up
I
on the hill.
sexually identify as an attack helicopter, so
He's my attack helicopter.
Now, what are your pronouns if you sexually identify as attack helicopter?
Burr and Brick.
That's interesting you say that because I sexually identify as a money printer.
Oh,
And
really? What are your
yeah,
pronouns?
same thing, Burr and Burr. How about you, Ezra?
I don't know. I've always said attack helicopter, but that's already taken.
Oh, how about pirate ship?
Yeah, that works. That works.
Hmm.
I don't know what would my pronouns be? R, I guess.
Or
Something
or
like,
maybe
something like
Ezra
that.
here is gold and silver. That's what he identifies as.
uh,
Top
like
of the heap, right?
yeah, gold
Top of the
bar or
card.
something. I don't know. So you guys were talking about the economics and sexual marketplace and how that all ties in. Can you just kind of expand on what you mean?
Well, I mean, I figured, kind of go over what we went through with the Martin Goldberg video and with Arvin Vora and see, did you get a chance to watch our video?
I did get a chance to watch a little bit of a show. I watched the show with David Friedman, which was fantastic, by the way, which was mostly just him giving a lecture and you guys asking the questions.
Yep, that's David for you. So
Yeah,
he's a gym though.
exactly,
So
exactly. And
gonna be
maybe kind of an unpopular opinion, but I think David is probably more based than Milton.
Really?
yes.
Probably,
I
yes.
agree.
But I think Milton does get a little too much hate. I mean, he wasn't an Austrian economist, but he did agree with Austrians on quite a few issues.
Yeah.
He did. So I mean, the only thing that he disagrees with Austrians is the intervention part, but I mean, without Milton, you wouldn't have David. So
yeah, pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I did watch a little bit of that show. I didn't get to watch the whole thing because I've been busy lately, but I did watch a little bit of it. I think you guys were talking about, I mean, you're not just talking about prostitution in general. You're more talking about like the sexual marketplace. You're touching on human trafficking and our perspective on that. And that's one thing that a lot of people that are just like getting into, ANCAP or agorist theory, whatever, they talk about how will we stop that? Well, the real question is, or I mean, the answer to that question is that you can't. You can't now. The state contributes all this resource to stop human trafficking and to stop, the sexual marketplace in the black market, and they cannot stop it because you can't stop a black market. So basically, what you're saying is, I want to continue to contribute billions of dollars to a failing effort because it makes me feel better about myself and my position.
I feel like I'm socially pure for making a position that is very safe.
Yeah,
and
I feel
Yeah.
I feel more socially pure by taking the position that my neighbors should be robbed to pay for an effort for something that's going to fail that can't succeed in the first place.
Well, and then
Because it's morally
inevitably,
right.
yeah, and inevitably when you're removing an aspect of the market and making it appear black or gray for that matter, you're inevitably going to force those on the underground world to monopolize in their own realm and bring violence into the equation, and that's where you have a red market, and that's where, you know, I mean, that's the only thing that you can do within the underworld, the true free market, is compete with the white market.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. I mean, look at prohibition. That's the prime example most people point to, and the drug war. I mean, more recently, but prohibition in the 1920s gave rise to the mafia, which I would argue that the mafia, I mean, maybe not on a moral basis, but like just in general, the mafia was probably more upstanding than the FBI, because at least the mafia is providing a service, right?
Yeah.
They're
even if it is by force.
Even if it is by force, even if it's an immoral service, like what is more immoral? I mean, obviously the mafia was immoral, but I mean, you start making, you know, equations to other things. You say what is more immoral? I think that, well, I would put it this way. I think that politicians that pass laws that let cops go and throw drug dealers in a cage are more immoral than the drug dealers themselves and the drug users, especially the drug users.
Well,
because
what's your go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, so what do you think of the idea of civil asset forfeiture then with that? Yeah.
Well, it's basically highway robbery by a different name, right? The idea that armed state agents, basically an armed gang, can steal from you with the full weight of the law behind him is just complete. It's completely opposed to everything liberty. It's completely opposed to the idea of individual liberty. Civil asset forfeiture needs to end. And I talked to cops. I talked to a cop on a podcast once. And he was talking about how, well, you know, if somebody's walking down the street and they have a screwdriver in their pocket, I want to say that's a deadly weapon, and I'm taking it. I'm sorry. How is that any of your business? And how is it anybody's business? Like, but when we talk about civil asset forfeiture, we're not usually talking about, you know, weapons or whatever. We usually talk about large sums of money. Like, say you own a business and you're driving from across country and you put like $100,000 in cash in your car because you have to drive it that way and you don't want to keep it in the bank. Maybe you don't trust banks, and you take $100,000 and you put it in your car and it's in cash and it's in a case. And obviously you're armed at this point. You're probably going to be armed with automatic rifles because you don't want anybody stealing that. And the cops pull you over for maybe speeding, and they search your car and they find $100,000 in bills and automatic rifles. What are they going to think? They're going to think you're involved in some kind of cartel. But really, it's none of their business, because this is legitimate. If it's legitimate business, then it's none of the state's business. I mean, I don't see how they can rob you without asking any questions. They could just say, well, this looks suspicious to me, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this action. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z because this looks suspicious to me. And the real problem is it doesn't matter if it's not suspicious. It doesn't matter if it's completely legitimate. Once they take that money from you or take those weapons from you, you ain't getting that back unless you go through a very tumultuous process with the courts and a lot of bureaucracy. You have to go through a lot of red tape. And for some people, maybe it's a life savings. Maybe it's all they have. Like there was a case, I want to say either in New Mexico or Arizona, where it was this veteran. He was going to start up a cannabis dispensary, and it was all legitimate money. And he had to go. He had to go through the system and had to go through the bureaucracy to get back his money because some cop or group of cops thought that it was suspicious.
See,
and that's the. No, go ahead.
I'll say that seems to be the problem, is that we have this concept of social pollution and social purity, and we think that because we have this concept of social pollution, that we can use violence to shape society to create social purity. And when you have that as an option, and social pollution is a subjective term, because there's 16 different personality Myers-Briggs personality types, and there's 9 different Enneagram types. There's millions and millions of options of what is acceptable and what is not. But because we have such narrow views in the law, and people would just want to make a paycheck, they don't care about the consequences of what the law entails. Then you open up the door for a lot of people in jail for no real reason other than being
victimless crimes.
Difference of opinion.
Yeah, difference of opinion. See, I think that any idea, maybe not any idea, but like most ideas, there's a marketplace of ideas, right?
Yeah.
And in the marketplace of ideas, you can not agree with something and still say, well, maybe I don't agree with it. Maybe that's against my personal principles. And maybe you have deeply held principles against it, but you still should not advocate the state to come in and try to put those people in jail or try to punish those people because you disagree with them. This is not just a religious thing either with people in different religions. This is anybody. And I got into a conversation with a guy the other day. He was talking about how I told him, most people, whether they realize it or not, are pretty libertarian on the issues. And he said, well, I don't really agree with that, because most people want to be left alone, but nobody wants to leave anyone else alone.
Yeah.
See, like you want to be left alone. Well, I don't mean you. I mean just in general, the population wants to be left alone, but they don't want to leave us alone. They're not live and let live. They're live and don't let you.
Yeah.
Right.
That brings me to a question that hopefully you got an answer for. The idea of radical individualization that can lead to the notion of radical collectivization. Whether you agree or not, I mean, what do you think of that notion? Because I think you just hit it right there. Individuals want to be left alone, but you get a whole collection of individuals that want to take control, and only a few of them get to do what they want to do, and then enforce others to do what they want. I mean, what do you think on that issue? The radical individualization leading into radical centralization or radical collectivization?
I think that number one, decisions are best made as close to the individual as possible. The process of democracy is really a bad thing. Like, it is very bad, but it is necessary in some context, because how else are we supposed to make decisions on a community basis? The risk that you run is, and this is why, Hoppe's covenant communities, which I actually tend to support. The whole idea that if you want to be separate from society, live with people that agree with you, you can have your own code of conduct in a community. And basically, if you break that code of conduct, then you're out of the community. That makes sense to me. That makes perfect sense. But I think there's also the possibility, like, this is why the state is such a problem, right?
Yeah.
And, not to get too far into the weeds, but I guess the comparison between the state and the government, like, conservatives say that, oh, well, anarchists want no government. No, anarchists don't want no government. Anarchists want no state. And the state is a centralization of power among a few individuals on a monolithic level, right? So that's basically what we're fighting against. We're fighting against the centralization on a monolithic level. Like, the idea that you can have a federal law against something and you just put everybody into a box and you say, well, someone in the Bronx, New York City, this law applies the same to them as it does someone out in rural Alaska. That is just a monolithic lawmaking process. And I use that word way too much, but that's the only word that describes it. It's collectivization. I'm writing an article right now called Lessons from Babel. And it's about the biblical story of the Tower of Babel and how that is basically ties into the whole anti-collectivist argument, because what they were trying to do is collectivize themselves. They were putting everybody in the same box. They were saying, okay, we're all humans. We're all equal. And we're all going to live together in this tower, and we're all going to live happily ever after. That's not human nature. That's not how humans are designed to operate. we are an individualistic species. We are not designed, really, civilization is not how we're designed. We're not designed to be civilized. Necessarily, I tend to think that humans, I guess humans tend to be way more individualistic than pretty much any other, any other species, because I don't think that humans are capable of ruling other humans. Now, if you think about a beehive, right? I mean the monarchy in the beehive, right? But with humans, that doesn't work, because I don't think humans are capable of governing one another. And we get into the whole argument of, Christianity, Islam, whatever. They'll say, well, humans have to have some form of guidance. Do they? Do humans have to have some do they have to have some form of guidance? A better question is, should it be your guidance? What makes your ideas so special that your ideas should be law? I believe in a free marketplace of ideas. I believe that everybody is entitled to their ideas, no matter how screwed up their ideas might be. But you're never entitled to have your ideas be law, no matter how much I might agree.
Yeah, I think that's why it should definitely be, voluntary. If everybody's on the same page, then society can't scale appropriately. So, and at the same time, if there's multiple pages, multiple books, whatever you want to call it, everybody can be in competition. But it's a lot harder to do that with one money supply. So I think it's, there's always going to be middlemen, people who don't agree, people who don't care, who work between people who don't agree.
The only way you can have a just government is if you have basically a code of conduct that everyone voluntarily agrees to and agree to follow these rules. That's the only way you can have a just government. If one person disagrees with a rule, then it's not a just government.
Yeah. But it's hard to do that when value is subjective and not everybody is going to agree with how one should be governed. And then that's where you run into the conclusion towards why so many laws are unjust, and yet there's so many laws, period.
The question was more about how does radical individualism lead into collectivism? Does it? I mean, I think collectivism, it depends on how you define it. Collective in a community working like a commune doesn't seem like such a terrible idea, right? As long as everybody's in a voluntary interaction.
Exactly.
And I've read libertarian socialist theory, and I've read, libertarian anarchist theory, or anarcho-socialist, whatever. I don't necessarily agree with it because I think it's kind of an oxymoron. But if you could have a voluntary socialist society, then I don't really see the issue. I don't think I would participate in it because I don't tend to think that everyone should live at the expense of everyone else. I don't think you should share the wealth because everyone's entitled to their capital. Everyone's entitled to what they own. And I believe strongly in the concept of private property. But if you could have a voluntary socialist society, and if that were possible, then I think it wouldn't be an issue. But the problem is socialism is never voluntary. I mean, you never have someone come in and say, okay, everyone agrees that they're going to share a certain percentage of their wealth with their neighbor, and we're all going to agree and we're all going to live happily ever after. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen because I believe personally, I don't know where you guys come down on this, but socialism and collectivism in general is inherently coercive. I think the difference between an anarcho-capitalist society and an anarcho-socialist or anarcho-communist society is that in an anarcho-capitalist society, you can set up your own little commune. You can be a socialist, as big a socialist as you want, as long as you keep to yourself, as long as you do it voluntarily. But in an anarcho-communist society, ANCAPs are going to the gulag.
Yeah. And that goes right back to Hoppean right there. I mean, you can separate yourself. You can simply divorce. So,
I see this as the only way that civilization can really come together and prosper is if we just learn to separate yourself from things that you don't agree with. Like if a Christian, if an evangelical Christian, a staunch evangelical Christian, wants to live in a society with other staunch evangelical Christians that share pretty much the same viewpoints, then in my ideal society, you could set up your own community based on your Christian principles, your Christian perspective. You can set up biblical laws if you want to, as long as everyone agrees to it. But what you cannot do and what doesn't work is when you come into a state, or you come into a country, let's just say a country, And we see what happens in Saudi Arabia. We see what happens in Muslim countries. They turn into dystopian nightmares because they try to be theocratic. They say, okay, this is God's law, and we're going to apply God's law to everyone. Our version of God's law. The problem is that no one agrees on what God's law really is. Right? I mean, Christians have their perspective, Muslims have their perspective, Hindus have their perspective. So you cannot apply monolithically religious principles to a whole nation. You can't apply any principle monolithically to a whole nation unless it's something that people collectively agree with, like murder, rape, theft. You're never going to have anybody say murder should be legal. Not anyone that's sane. You're never going to have anybody say that rape should be legal. But you're also not going to have too many other points of agreement. You're going to have like maybe the big three, maybe a few others. You're not going to have too many points of agreement. What we can all agree on is fine. But we should not try to force our principles on everyone else. We should hold our principles, but we should not make our principles law, and we should not attempt to use the power of the state to enforce our principles.
Yeah.
And that goes to my next question right here is there is no monopoly on perspective, obviously. So and society would be probably better to be able to have the freedom of movement and to be able to divorce from whatever society you disagree with. So with that, what do you think about the idea of private cities then?
The idea of private what?
Private cities.
Private cities, as in, well, the problem you arrive at with private cities instead of private communities is that in a city, in something like a city rather than a municipal community, you have to have a figurehead. You gotta have at least an elder. You gotta have somebody to look up to guide the city along the way. You don't have to have that in a community because collectively in communities, humans do just fine. But with a city, you usually have to have a leader, and that opens up the problem of who is qualified to be a leader. Who's qualified to guide the city. But what's really interesting is whenever you look back, and I'm fascinated with it, as you know, probably by now that I'm part Native American, and I'm fascinated with Native American history. And the Native American, I'm especially fascinated with tribal government because I feel like that is kind of human nature right there. Like if you're going to be civilized, if you're going to have a government, then tribally, that's how humans are meant to interact with each other. And if you look back, the chiefs did not really have total control over the tribe. The chief was more of a position to look up to, something for people to look up to. He didn't have total authoritarian control over the tribe. He had a council of elders, and that council of elders would help him make decisions. But everyone in the tribe would be consulted. In some tribes, even the women. So everyone went into the decision-making process. So when you talk about private cities, maybe that's if you think they could be run that way. If you think you could just have a figurehead, someone who's really smart, an exceptional member of a city to look up to and not have authoritarian control on everyone, then I think it could work. Yeah.
Now, not to bring video games into the matter, but I'm replaying through Assassin's Creed 3, which for Revolutionary War buffs and American history war buffs, you'd probably enjoy it. But I'm glad that you brought up that notion that tribal councils and leadership of Native Americans weren't always men. They a lot of times were women, and that is actually that's defined in the Mohawk tribe that Connor comes from. They have a den mother, and you see that in that game.
What's interesting is that while Western, or what would have been known at that point as Western society, civilized society, and they wanted to talk about how the Native Americans were savages and how they were, unwashed heathens. They were actually more progressed in socially than some of the Western societies. Like if you're having women participate in your tribe, do you think that women participated in politics in the 1700s or even the 1800s? No. The women were basically ostracized since they were seen as like, you're not supposed to have women in positions of authority. Tribes had already figured that out. They'd already figured out that women were on equal footing as men in issues of authority, in issues of power. And that just goes to show you that history doesn't always tell the full story, because the tribes were not savage. I mean, some tribes were savage. I mean, I think we can agree that human sacrifice is a pretty savage practice. But if you want to apply that to the whole Native American tribe, then that's bogus, because that was an Aztec practice. And the Aztecs were uncivilized, very much so. The Mayans as well. But the more, the further eastern tribes, they were actually pretty civilized. They actually had a pretty good thing going there. They had a good system of tribal government. They recognized women in positions of authority. I mean, they operated quite well. And the great thing about the tribes, the Native American tribes, it was a free market. It was a free market. It was a completely free market. It was capitalism at its finest. It was people voluntarily interacting with each other, trading, barter. It was amazing.
I think that goes back to like in Arvin Vora's book. He talks about how the women want to have the right to date, right? But on the other side of the coin is that we've got these people who just want to have the right to have a family, and they're being flooded with, virtue signaling about how we have to have the right to do whatever we want with whoever we want until now. Okay, I'm ready to settle down now that I've had 20 partners, and there's no consequences to that because it's encouraged.
I think we've lost to a great extent, the nuclear family, and I think we can get it back. But when people talk about the nuclear family, that harkens people to throwback, right? They say, "Oh, you just want a white America. You just want, all little white babies running around." No, the nuclear family can be black, it can be Asian, it can be whatever. The nuclear family is simply a man and a woman and children. And that doesn't mean that you can exclude other forms of the family, but I think we can all agree that the nuclear family is the proper mode of the family. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be the mode that everyone uses, or that certain modes should be illegal or discouraged. But the nuclear family is what is kind of a pillar of modern society, I think.
Now, how do you think we can go back to that? Because this is actually also discussed in Arvin Voira's book, Pull Out. But how do you think we should get back to that idea of the traditional nuclear family? Because I think at this point we're a little too far gone from the 50s and the 60s and that idea of it. And of course there was just as much debauchery or debauchery as there is today. It just wasn't completely known.
The thing about it is civilization rarely changes. I mean, you could say that we have innovation. We can go 1,000 years in the future. Civilization rarely changes. I mean, it usually stays the same for the most part. I mean, you have innovation, you have technology, you have advancement. Humans don't change. Humans don't change. And in the 50s and 60s, people like to point back, oh, I want to go back to just the Mayberry days, right? I want to go back to when we had little cities out in rural areas where everybody just seemed to get along. That's kind of a false viewpoint of how it was in the 50s and 60s, because you had segregation laws. You had a lot of stuff in the 50s and 60s that was really messed up. It was not the greatest time. But that doesn't mean that the concept of the family that they had at that point, where it was just basically as it was meant to be, pretty much. That doesn't mean we can't go back to that. But whenever you talk about that, we talk about, oh, look at the concept of the family in the 50s and 60s. People start saying, oh, so you want to go back to segregation? So you want to go back to Jim Crow? No, you can want to go back to a certain period of time, but you don't have to want to go back to all the aspects of that time. I mean, personally, I think the times of ancient Greece, or the times of ancient Greece, or the tribal history in the United States before the arrival of the settlers was pretty rad. Doesn't mean I want to go back to those time periods with all the little perks that come along with it, like sudden death. But I think that some aspects of those times were pretty nice.
I think that's the difference between Greco-Roman ethics and Judeo-Christian ethics, is because Greco-Roman ethics is designed, well, it wasn't designed, it was basically shaped by culture for
Yeah.
society to have better, to have adequate management of their emotions. It is what it was, or it is what it is. You do what you had to do. And there's a stark contrast between the Judeo-Christian ethics there, is that everybody's equal and everybody makes mistakes, and so I don't know. It's just
you got the same. Yeah, you got the same within the Far East, the Orient. I mean, it's in those cultures too, like Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they had their classes, and in Hindu, predominantly Hindu and Buddhist, Indochina and India and feudal Japan. But at the same time, just that peaceful notion of Eastern philosophy is kind of flown through, like the cultural aspect that family. I mean, when it comes to family, like family means something. Like you have multi-generational um, family members within a household, working with each other and helping one another through thick and thin in those days. And I mean, even up to now, and especially way back when, especially 2,000-3,000 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the concept of culture. And the West.
It's about culture, and I think one of the things that it's also about, one of the things we don't talk about much, is that the culture in this country is broken. I mean, look at it. I was having a conversation the other day with someone, and they were talking about how, oh, we have to ramp up the war on drugs because look at all this fentanyl that's pouring over the border, and look at all these young people that are dying of fentanyl. And I was talking about, I said, doesn't that beg the question why? Doesn't it beg the question why? Why are so many young, healthy adults and young adults and even teenagers turning to drugs? What are they trying to escape? Don't we need to look in the mirror as a nation and say, what is our problem that requires some kind of outside solution like drugs, something to escape reality? We need to recognize that our culture is broken, and more drug war, more throwing people in jail for victimless crimes, more trying to disrupt a black market that cannot be disrupted, wasting money, throwing money at the issue. That's not the solution. We need to take a long, hard look in the mirror at our culture and recognize that our culture is broken. I don't know if it's broken beyond repair, but it's definitely broken. There's definitely some cracks.
Yeah. See, you say black market and stuff like that, and I think about it this way: it's not a black market; it's that we're trying to put Pandora's box back together to keep everything, put everything back in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we want to disrupt the black, not just disrupt. Like there are people out there on the right that will say, "Oh, maybe we should just shoot missiles over into Mexico and blow up all the cartel outposts." Now, they don't really think, no one ever accused them of being good at that particular thing.
Yeah.
But that is not the solution at all.
No.
You're going to shoot missiles over into a sovereign country to disrupt drug cartels.
Yeah.
And
we can blow up the cartel and then just create a whole bunch of freedom fighting insurgents. So.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Then we could just fund the freedom fighting insurgents to fight the cartel, and the freedom fighting insurgents can beat the cartel and then turn on us, and then we can fund somebody else to fight them. And that's just a cycle of American foreign policy, right? I funded this guy to kill this guy, to kill this guy, to kill this guy, to kill this guy. That's
just like Syria. Sounds like Syria,
that's...
Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia. Oh, I can go. I can continue going on.
American foreign policy is an endless cycle of creating problems and then funding people to solve the problems, and then those people becoming problems, and then funding other people to solve that problem.
Well, you know how the CIA works. It's a 50-50 shot, right? There's always going to be something up the card. So.
Yep.
A legacy of ashes.
100%. Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah, most definitely. Definitely the CIA. CIA has definitely been involved. Probably one of the most evil institutions in the history of the world. I mean, you can look back at a lot of evil institutions, but the CIA knows everything about everything and has everybody on a database, and they know pretty much everything about the interworkings, all the criminal enterprise, and they use it to enrich the overlords. And you look back they try to talk about, conspiracy theories. They say people are, wearing tinfoil on their hats, or they're, they're being ridiculous if they talk about how the CIA, with the drug industry in South America, funding the South American rebels and laundering money and drugs through that whole industry that was going on.
Yeah.
And they don't want people to talk about that because that really speaks to the immorality, that really speaks to the corruption of the CIA. And they want to just say, oh, this is just a bunch of people online spouting ridiculous theories. There's actually evidence of this stuff. And there's a lot of things that there's evidence for that's taboo to talk about because people don't want to be seen as crazy. You can't go out and run for public office and be like, yeah, I wanna abolish the CIA because I think that they're corrupt and they were, laundering drugs, money through South America in the 80s or, whenever that happened. You can't say that because people will say, oh, well, you're a nut job. I'm not going to vote for you. And the voters are not very educated on this kind of thing. They don't want to vote for an edgelord. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing that they don't want to vote for an edgelord because edgelords tend to get stuff done. Right.
Yeah. Well, see, that's what happened with Trump. He got in and, well, you saw what happened with that.
Yep. And there's a guy, I don't know if you guys are familiar, running for U.S. Senate in Arizona, Blake Masters. And Blake Masters, on the surface, seems like, a Christian nationalist, a anti-immigration, very much a national populist.
Yeah.
But Blake Masters is more well-read libertarian anarchist theory than any of us here, and probably most of the people on Liberty Twitter and in the libertarian movement. Blake Masters is a student of Rothbard and also Mises. And Blake Masters, he is very much a Rothbardian type, or at least at one point was. And I don't know how much of that translates over to his current ideology. But I feel like if a dude has read more Rothbard than most libertarians, if a dude has read more Mises than most libertarians, that's a guy you want in the Senate because it doesn't matter how much of that he's renounced, how much of that he no longer believes. If you've read that stuff, if you actually had those views at one point, that's a dream candidate. Right?
Yeah. Just a second. We'll be up in just a second. We had a hard break. We'll be right back.
Okay. All right, good.
Welcome back.
Welcome all.
So, Blake Masters, anarcho-capitalist,
Blake Masters,
agorist.
It depends. I mean, you know how sometimes people have libertarian viewpoints, and then they kind of renounce them, but they don't totally renounce them. It's kind of what we got with Blake Masters. We've got a paleo-conservative who is possibly still in tune with, paleo. I think he definitely believes in paleo strategy. And I'm sure you guys know what that is. You know what paleo strategy is, right? It's essentially saying that, you have to, sometimes the enemy of your enemy is your friend. And libertarians need to form some kind of alliance with the national conservatives and with the national populists because we have a common enemy in the administrative state. Not sure I totally buy that, but I've definitely talked to people about that, and there are people that are open to it. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I know that Tom Woods had a video about this back after Biden got elected, and I think I think there's these different communities. Like, okay, we was talking earlier about like the woman's right to date and stuff like that. That's true, but that's just one narrow view. I mean, you've got these people who call themselves involuntary celibates, both male and female. They could have their own country where it's just the same thing as having a right to a family,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It just depends on the wind and how you had to handle the situation in real time as an individual.
I look at it through the lens of a Michael Malice head. I mean, if you're a conservative, you're just driving the speed limit.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to. Yeah,
that is true.
It's very difficult to side with somebody that is probably just utilizing you for what you stand for in order to get power. So I mean, just because
if that happened, libertarians, national conservatives, or populists would be utilizing each other. Go ahead, see it. I think it would be kind of an equal thing, right? I mean, NatCons give us some concessions, and maybe we give NatCons some concessions. I don't know. I'm not really sure how all this is supposed to work because I'm not, like I told you, I'm not totally on board with it. But I feel like any way that libertarians can gain power, even if it's by painting ourselves as NatCons, even falsely, like I don't see the issue with lying to get elected to office. Because that's literally what everyone does, right?
I've got a friend that
that's what everybody does. That's what everybody does.
That's what I tell them.
It's just a matter of how much you're willing to admit it, right? And there are a lot of libertarians that have ran as populists, and it's very popular run as, but it would be very hard for me to run as a populist. Okay, all you have to do is like just go back to recent tweets, and you can quickly see that this is all a facade, right? This is why if anybody ever runs for public office, you got to delete your tweets. There's something out there, Mandela bars, the dude running in Wisconsin, something about Syria, something extremely controversial that he posted like in 2010, I think, something like that, and some old tweet, something he probably hasn't thought about in a decade. And they're talking about it. So yeah, if you're gonna run for office, pro tip, delete your tweets.
Yeah, well, at least the tweets are still there because on Facebook the content is not available anymore. So it just it depends.
Now it takes an act of Congress to get out of a Facebook account. Like you better watch what you post. You better watch what you post on Facebook.
Or if you have old tweets or anything, at least have a dummy account that doesn't include your name or any information that links back to you.
The good thing about Facebook is that you can't see recent posts unless you're just like, you can only see profile picture changes. So that's
about
decent.
It's going out of business, baby.
Facebook is definitely going away as a dinosaur. What are your thoughts on Elon Musk buying Twitter?
I think it definitely is a step in the right direction. As long as it becomes a network. I can't remember exactly how it was traced, but it's like a network where a federated network. Yeah, that's what it's called. It's where you have a platform, and if you don't like what it's on there, you have the option to censor it, but only on your particular browser that you use. It's still there. It's just deleted from your purview.
One thing I like about Elon Musk is that he's a free speech absolutist.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much I would buy into this whole idea that Elon Musk is a libertarian. I don't think he's a libertarian.
Yeah. He's a compassionate conservative.
I was going to say, Andrew call.
He's not a conservative either, because he's very much liberal or left wing on the issues. I mean, he supports
universal. Says.
Universal.
And if you want to know me, and this is Ezra's perspective, if you want to know me and Andrew's perspective, go to our latest episode about Robert Cornish, and you can get our perspective of what we think about Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah. The way I look at it is like these billionaires, usually not on your side, but sometimes, I mean, some of them, maybe by necessity, maybe for other reasons, maybe for self-advancement. It doesn't really matter. Like if you can get a win, like a free speech absolutist buying Twitter and being like, you can say whatever you want, but like maybe you can censor it on your own browser. Don't expect the company to just censor people. Yeah. That is a step in the right direction for free speech, and that's definitely a win.
See, that's the benefit of open source software, and I guess by definition, open source society is by the time the pollution becomes obvious to the people in power, and they try to implement a solution. There's 20 different new outlets that come up through the network that they're going to have to keep fighting, and it's basically they're killing themselves by trying to implement their ideas, because they're spinning themselves to death.
They're forcing each other to wither away when you're open stuff like that. So, and that's the step in the right direction. Let people just kill themselves.
Everyone has the right to go to hell in their own special way, according to David Friedman.
Exactly.
I agree with that. 100%.
But according to Dave Smith, everybody has the right to get the hell out of my park.
Yeah.
That never ends.
One thing I did want to ask you guys, I had a question. I had literally one question. I had one question.
Okay.
So, the whole meme version of Hoppe's physical removal, right? You're gonna throw communists out of helicopters. Now that's not really what he meant. Like, like if you look back on, that's not what he meant at all. He thinks
that's what I meant.
Yeah,
that's what we mean. But
but he thinks you're all crazy. But what he actually meant was like ostracized, dangerous ideologies from society.
Yep.
And I actually like that. I think that if you have a dangerous viewpoint that could lead to millions of deaths, like Nazism, communism, whatever it may be, then you should be ostracized from society. People should simply divorce from you. You can still have your views, but you can have them over there.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the way I think that's human nature, right? You should be able to divorce from each other. I believe in the absolute right of everyone to disagree on anything. It gets me into a lot of trouble, my stance on freedom of association. It gets me into a lot of trouble.
Here's a stick. Let's all argue about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I believe in the right to disagree, and I believe in the right to disagree on anything.
Yeah.
Which is, something that a lot of people don't understand.
No. They want to share a country when you don't want to share a country.
Yeah, and not just that, they don't understand, like, you talk about racial issues, you talk about whatever the issue may be.
Yeah.
I mean, when you say that you have the right to disagree, you have the right to disassociate, that right is absolute.
Yeah.
That
predates the existence of any government.
But private individuals have the right to disassociate from anyone.
That brings me to another question for you. So, how close are we to that national divorce idea?
Pretty close, I think. As far as polarization is concerned, we've never been more polarized. We have
since
radicals.
1858.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, since the Civil War, we've not been this polarized. I think that if Trump runs for president and gets reelected to a second non-consecutive term and does whatever the heck he's going to do, and then he either dies or is no longer in office, and then you probably get another Democrat or maybe his vice president or whatever. It's going to take a few cycles, but I think eventually polarization is just reaching a point, especially in the event of another Trump presidency. Like you saw how polarizing Donald Trump was. I mean, love him or hate him, he was a polarizing figure. You either love the guy and would walk over broken glass to vote for him, or you hated the guy and would walk over broken glass to vote against him. And that's not something that we've seen for a while. So that kind of polarization, it just feeds into the whole national divorce. I mean, you don't want to share a country with people that want to throw you in a gulag for voting for your preferred candidate. And the sooner conservatives realize that we need to stop, trying to coexist with people that want to throw us into jail for having certain viewpoints, that want to jail their political opponents and basically take over everything, want to take over want to have a monopoly on public opinion, then the sooner conservatives recognize that we should not coexist with those people, the better.
Well, with 50 states, everyone has to have the same opinion. Otherwise, there's no real opinion.
Right. With vastly different cultures, vastly different characteristics. Yeah, everybody has to have the same opinion.
Well, what comes first? Is it the national divorce, or will nuclear holocaust end that argument relatively quickly?
We're dangerously close. We're closer than we've ever been.
We are.
Yeah, we as a nation are dangerously closer than we've ever been since the Cuban Missile Crisis, the nuclear war. And nobody seems to want to lower the temperature, except for I mean, you have sane individuals all around the globe that want to lower the temperature, and they want to talk about peace and peaceful resolution. And then you have people that just say, oh, screw this. If Ukraine is going to lose an inch of territory, then I'm just willing to bring us all to the brink of nuclear war. And this speaks to just how dangerous and how effective war propaganda is. If you can paint someone as the enemy, and governments don't stop at painting opposing soldiers or opposing leaders as the enemy. They paint an entire civilization as the enemy. We saw this with Germany in World War II. We saw this with Japan in particular in World War II. I mean,
who happened to be our ally during World War One.
You paint civilizations with a broad brush, and when people talk about how the Russians, they're not just talking about the Russian. They're not talking about the soldiers. They're not talking about the leadership. They're talking about the people of Russia. And the people of Russia largely have absolutely nothing to do with this invasion. I mean, they're just like us. They're trying to live their lives, and they would prefer not to spontaneously combust into red mist. And I think that's something that we can all agree on, is that we don't want to be turned into red mist spontaneously. And if we want to avoid that, then we have to seek to lower the temperature. There is nothing more important right now than lowering the temperature globally.
There's no government like no government, right?
Beg your pardon?
There's no government like no government, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you wouldn't be having this problem if you had no government. I mean, you wouldn't have madmen with their finger on the nuclear button.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you something. That's something I've been wanting to bring up for a little bit ago. For a little bit. In a free society, do you think that if there were police, it would be more adequate for people to pay fines over going to jail?
Would it be adequate for people to pay fines rather than go to jail? Well, that begs the question: would jail even exist?
Yeah, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
I've talked to people about this. Talked to anarchists, talked to conservatives. Got a lot of pushback on that with them. And libertarians and less moderate libertarians, more radical libertarians. What they all seem to agree on is that the prison system right now is a disaster. And conservatives tend to think that we need to take it further, and libertarians say, "Oh no, let's not." And anarchists say, "Well, screw the prison system. We don't need it." But to answer your question, in a free society, would it be adequate to pay fines rather than go to jail? I think that depends on the severity of the crime. I personally like the idea of restorative justice. which is, if say you have, let me give you an example. Say you have a young man, a young juvenile delinquent, throw a rock through the window of a storekeeper's, of a storekeeper's store, and the storekeeper calls the private police. Private police, right? Obviously, they round him up because he's not very smart, right? And that young juvenile delinquent is brought before the store owner to have a conference about the situation, and the store owner is allowed to seek retribution or allowed to let it slide. And you let individuals figure these problems out for themselves. The problem we have in today's society is that people would rather call an armed gang to come point guns at their neighbor and kidnap them or even kill them than they would discuss things like civil human beings, minute issues.
And I think a lot of that has a lot to do with the expansion of settlements per capita. When you have a large cluster of people, more people want to outsource their own authority to achieve some sort of retribution or revenge over a crime that would have been committed against them. So they're willing to utilize the state. If we had a less structured yet organized community base, I mean, and it worked out way back in our past. Like in small towns, you did have that element where store owner ends up catching well, they don't catch them, but they end up they know knowledge of the kid that stole the bag of
Great thing
candy.
about communities is everyone knows everybody, so it's very difficult to hide.
Exactly. And even though it's still a state jurisdiction of police, I mean the town police or the county sheriff, everybody knows everybody, and they're willing to kind of voluntarily establish, okay, well, sir, you want to deal with this now, or we'll get a hold of his parents.
Weeks once we get this all settled out.
Or should we just
honestly,
arrest him?
I think if a person, I could give you another example. Say you're a store owner and you own a store and it's a grocery store. And you have this guy that comes in and he looks like he hasn't eaten like 6 weeks and he's got tattered clothing. And he comes in and he steals a bag of potato chips. Would you rather call an armed gang to come rough that guy up and kidnap him and take him, put him in a cage for trying to eat? Or maybe he has a young baby or a young daughter he's trying to feed his family. Would you rather solve that among yourselves, try to understand his situation, try to understand his perspective?
His perspective,
Or would you rather just call the police and have them take him away?
And see, this is where it comes in. It's this idea, like go back to earlier about social pollution. Like, okay, in China, people go to prison for speaking out against the system, right? But at the same time, you've got news reports in the past about like these companies over China who are making it's going to be a little disgusting. They're making like soy sauce out of sewage, and they don't go to they pay a fine. And you got people who like run over people and they pay a fine because it's cheaper just to do it that way in their society. I'm not saying anything is right or wrong. I'm just saying these are things that different societies are doing.
Well, then we have to talk about one thing we do have to address is we talk about petty crime, we talk about minute things. We need to talk about more serious crime. And that's murder, rape, theft. I mean, if you don't have a state, how are you going to punish that kind of thing? And what I personally think that the worst criminals, pedophiles, mass murderers, I favor the idea of just, taking them all and putting them on an island and letting them live like animals away from society in the company of other animals. I think if you want to be an animal, then you can be an animal in your own society.
Put thieves together and force thieves to live amongst each other. Because inevitably, that's what it all is. It's all theft. It doesn't matter what it's.
Play into human nature, right? I mean, if you want to exercise your nature in a way that harms others, then exercise your nature in a way that harms others among people that also want to exercise their nature to harm others. Don't be a member of polite society.
Yeah, that takes me to a George Carlin quote.
I was about to bring that up.
He actually brings that
good.
up where you take what you do is you take in this country, you take Kansas. You just take Kansas, you move everybody out, eminent domain them, make it, then just build a large wall around it. Then you put all the murderers and the rapists and the pedophiles and all those violent offenders. I mean, all those evil people, and then you just let them go to town on each other. And then when you want to really get creative, you add a little door on one of the walls that leads to what was it? Was it Colorado?
Yeah.
Where what was Colorado? I forget. Anyways, you open that door once a year for like 12 hours, and then you basically have a purge.
Yeah.
And you put it on TV.
Yeah.
Pay-per-view to be exact.
God, this reminds me of Grand Theft Auto 3, that radio station asked Spawn about, I don't know how it is, but they're basically recording everybody fighting in line. So yeah, I guess that's really, when people say physical removal, so to speak, that's what they're talking about, is George Carlin.
Yeah, pretty much. The concept of neo-feudalism. Some people have a huge problem with the whole idea of feudalism. I understand that.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking about feudal lords, taking control of a whole civilization. I'm talking about being the absolute tin-horn dictator of your own property. I think that's the natural right of every man, to be basically king of your own property. People say a man's home is his castle. I take that literally. I think you have a right to have whoever you want on your property, or not have whoever you want on your property. I think you have a right to set the rules for your property, and according to your principles, and your property should quite literally be your castle.
Yeah.
And
that is truth.
Yeah, that's a concept people have a hard time grasping.
Yeah.
And it would be, that's a form of feudalism. The only difference is I mean,
feudalism minus the tyranny.
Yeah, we can't have the class alteration that kind of creates it into this organizational chaos. But on the knowledge that everybody is the king or queen of their own piece of property, when they own property and can choose whom comes in and whom cannot come in, that's liberty.
That's literally the concept. Yeah, that's literally the concept of individual liberty and private property.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have claim to property, you have claim to an area of land, who else but you has the authority to set the rules, to set the restrictions, to set who can and cannot come on your property? I mean, you're telling me that a monolithic entity 1,000 miles away should tell you what you can and cannot do on your own property?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I was just go ahead. I'll bring it up.
Michael Mouse had a video about this. I'm looking to Bitcoin, I think it was. He's saying, like, the Pope used to have armies and stuff like that. And now he's got his Pope mobile, and people will have the choice to listen to what he has to say. You don't have to listen, and that's basically what it is. I mean, you get these ideas that either socially pure or they're socially polluted, and they're seeded into society so that somebody can make money off it in the future. Instead of seeding it across the board so that everybody has to acknowledge it. Maybe it's better just to plan it off in an island, like you said, where it's not going to have to affect the high majority of people. I mean, look at the Middle East.
Marketplace of ideas.
Yeah.
All ideas are acceptable to a certain amount of people. I mean, as much as you hate to admit it, pretty much every idea, someone is going to agree with pretty much any idea you suggest.
Yeah.
No matter how screwed up it might be.
I think it was Carl Jung who said that people don't have ideas, ideas have people.
Yeah.
Carl Jung. I'm a psychologist, extravagant, or connoisseur, whatever, amateur. So
amateur psychologist.
Amateur, like the Joker says.
So, but speaking of all that, well, first off, I think the best word to define all of what both of you just said is economy. We're all economizing in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be for a good, it can be for a service, it can just be for life in general.
Yeah.
So
this is purposeful action, the study of praxeology.
And you shouldn't have to be forced to participate in society. I mean, what's the argument right now, and I've seen this a lot on Twitter, is the getting rid of the electoral college process. Well, if you get rid of the electoral college process, which is in the United States Constitution, you'll have to get rid of it through a ratification of an amendment that takes 2/3 of the states. And if you get rid of it, you're effectively turning the national election of president to the popular vote, which to a certain extent, there is some significance to the popular vote and how the allocation of delegates for the electoral college is implemented. But for the most part, if you take that electoral college away, what do you have? You have New York City by itself saying who the president is for Wyoming and Montana together, because you have a city of 10 million over two states that in combined are about 10 million.
Classification, it's a perfect example of democracy being the god that failed.
Exactly.
You can't expect a farmer in Wyoming to want the same person to be president as a interpretive dance instructor in New York. It doesn't work that way. That's not how civilization works. That's why civilizations on a massive scale, states, cities, counties, whatever it may be, they don't operate properly, because you put everybody into the same box. You expect everybody to have the same viewpoints. You expect everybody to just get along. And humans don't just get along.
And I think Lysander Spooner wrote a book about this that critiqued the Constitution. He called that essay No Treason,
the Constitution of No Authority. That's definitely one of my favorite books.
So it is, and and he sums it up great, because everybody when they vote is just a secret band of robbers and murderers.
I also like the point he made. The Constitution says "we the people." But Lysander Spooner makes the point. At that point, "we the people" didn't really mean we the people. It meant that there were certain people that were considered people, but others that weren't. The Native Americans weren't included in "we the people." Black people weren't included in "we the people." Slaves weren't included in "we the people." So
women weren't.
Women weren't included in "we the people." So if you're going to say "we the people" collectively, then you better mean it.
I mean, it literally took what 50 years before the common white male, just the normal commoner, to be able to vote in the national elections, especially for president. That would be Andrew Johnson's first election. I mean, before that, it was all
based on property ownership.
And this is what I hate. This is one of the, I don't know how much time we have left, but I just wanted to quickly touch on this. This is something I hate about government, is that they always say the people, the People's Liberation Army, the People's Republic of such and such. And the Constitution is no different. They say "we the people."
It's positive language.
If you really wanted to be honest, making a collectivization "we the people," really wanted to be honest, you should say "we the white wealthy landowners," because that's literally what they meant. But they just said "we the people," like we're all collective.
Consider the context of when it was written. So
considering the context. Context is important.
And that's the reason why it's very, very obsolete now, and it was obsolete at the time of Lysander Spooner, and he wrote about that. It's just it's a contract that is done.
You can't expect to have, by virtue of being a contract, every person that signed on to that contract originally must be living for the contract to still be in existence, to still be valid. And people that say the Constitution applies to people in today's time and just collectively, And
Mm-hmm.
as much as it applied to people in 1776, don't understand the whole concept of the contract.
Yeah.
There is no social contract. There is no social
Mhm.
contract. And I
No.
actually think a social contract society in the context of a community, if you
Mhm.
really sign on to a social contract, if you really agree to terms,
Mhm.
cool. Cool.
Yeah.
You
That's
agree
what
to
voting's
terms.
all about. If you don't like the
That's not what the
community, then you can leave.
Constitution does.
Yeah.
Mhm. Exactly.
The men of the
Exactly.
future will fight for rights we don't even yet. Yes.
Yeah.
Max Stirner.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he
So-
has a point in that quote, because
Yeah.
nobody understands the past, but everybody wants to go back to the past. And then what do you get in the future when all you're trying to do is trying to figure out the present and what it needs to be from way back when? You're going to get
Mhm.
tyranny. You're going to get guaranteed rights, and that's what I have an issue with the
Absolutely.
Constitution, and the fact that it's a very federalist doctrine, where the Federalists, in compromise with the Anti-Federalists, said, here, you can have your Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights are one of the most disheveled mess of bullshit, I mean, that you can ever give somebody. I mean, it is in effect a way for this new government at that time to say, these are your amendments, these are what we guarantee, but we can take them away.
Yeah.
That's positive law.
Yeah. And the thing
Yeah,
about
the
it,
Bill of-
like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So like we were talking earlier about voting, and then only those who voted, then 50 years later, all white, white people can vote, or all white men can vote, and then down the road, it just continually progressed.
Mhm.
And
Mm-hmm.
if you move forward in a different topic, like you used to be able to order machine guns out of magazines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now
Mhm.
you can't even buy a full auto legally. You had to get a tax stamp. You had to get something that was made before
You have to go through a
the
bureaucratic
1990s.
process with
Yeah,
the ATF.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
Might have the
you're
ATF
losing
show up
your
at your door.
rights slowly because they have the ability to create positive law
Yep. Mhm.
that makes it
Voters have
more
the ability
expensive.
to elect
Yeah.
people that will get their
Mhm.
positive laws passed. And I think
Yeah.
an important to make here, important distinction, is when
Mhm.
Lysander Spooner said a band of robbers and thieves, he wasn't
Mhm.
talking about the politicians.
Mm-mm.
He wasn't
Nope.
talking about the people in office passing the laws.
Nope.
When he said a band of robbers and thieves, he was talking about your neighbors.
Yeah.
He was talking about the people that are going to vote you into a tyranny, the people that are going to vote
Mhm.
people into office that are going to infringe on your rights. That's the band of robbers and thieves,
Mm.
the
Mhm.
individual that's voting
Mhm.
to oppress their neighbor.
Mm-hmm. And just so you know, I mean, the majority wins, but at the same time, you are unknown. Nobody that is voted into office individually
Mhm.
understands you. They don't know you. You voted by secret ballot, which is what Lysander Spooner talks about, and they don't have any responsibility for you. So
Nope.
there's no accountability in reality.
It's a system of zero responsibility and zero accountability.
Mhm.
Ironically, those negative rights are kind of coming back into fashion because now you don't have to have serial guns on your weapons. So it's swinging back. It's like a pendulum. It's swinging back and forth.
Mhm.
So I'm sure we'll have full auto eventually again. And
I
all
think the
other
NFA
rights
will
that
eventually be repealed. Yeah, it
Yeah.
will. It will
Mhm.
eventually be repealed.
Everything that we think is socially pollution is going to become socially pure because it's
Mhm.
just how gravity works.
That's just the
Mhm.
process, right? I mean, some things that the ancient Greeks saw as a natural part of culture, we see
Mhm.
as extremely messed up. But we
Yeah.
look at it through a lens of history. We
Mhm.
can look back through history. We can say, okay, this is messed up, this is messed up, this is messed up. Well, it's messed up by your standards.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
were born in this
How
society.
you were
have
programmed
your own
through culture.
standards.
Mhm.
This is
Mhm.
how you were programmed culturally and socially. To the
Mhm.
Greeks, to the Romans, to any other civilization, depending on
Mhm.
how they were programmed socially and culturally,
Mhm.
it wasn't messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, make of that what you
yeah.
will.
Speaking of the Romans and the Greeks, and to go back to the element of the sexual marketplace, the Romans actually were very monogamous prior to their expansion into Greek lands. They adopted the Greek culture in order to essentially conquer the eastern half of what would be their empire, and that's how you end up getting the social and sexual polygamy that and the orgies that they supposedly conducted within their
the
society.
famous,
So
the famous debauchery of Roman society. Yeah.
That was mainly a Greek culture ordeal, because the Greeks were very, as you said, their culture was very open, and the Romans were very closed, very committed, and but as you
today's
expand,
quote
you
unquote
adopt.
woke society would call it sex positive.
Well, it's all Greek to me, but right now I think we had to go ahead and call it for the day. You guys check us out on Hunter Biden Crack House. It's a pretty good time. I'm trying to have more people
Pleasure
join
being
us.
on, guys. Pleasure being on. Thanks for having me back.
Hey,
thanks for joining
thanks for
us,
coming
Ezra.
back on us, Ezra. So
no problem.
We'll do it
guys.
again.
Yeah,
we'll do it again as always.
Be happy to. Be happy to.
We'll be seeing you soon.
We will. Bye-bye.
Peace.
Peace.
Take care.
Oh man, that was fun. Looks like you're having a little fun yourself there, Zach.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. We just made a case against the Fed.
That's what we need.
So why don't we just end the Fed?
Maybe that's
while we're at it, let's end the state while we're at it too. Or actually, better yet, let's counter the state into capitulation to the market, in which it'll wither away into nothing. So,
well, maybe next time we could talk with Ezra about that. So I had a lot of fun. I hope you did.
I did too. So
I'm sure he did. It's always fun talking to him.
It is. We're definitely gonna have to do it even more as we continue to expand, and he is evidently truly expanding. So as he was talking to us prior to and the show and prior towards recording this outro, we had him on for a little bit before he left us. So some good things going on for Ezra, and hopefully some good things going on for us too. So why don't you get on YouTube, like us, subscribe to us, and ring that bell. And if you want to, hit us on some type of comment, even if it's calling Andrew baldy.
He bald head, as it said in the Bible.
He's bald headed, so just like the Bible.
Go on, bald head.
Or you can call me a jackass. It's all good. I might troll you.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the rib, right? It's part of the game.
That is part of the rib. Also, in the show notes below, if you want to listen, because this will be our video part, you want to listen, jump onto wherever you want to listen to podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon for crying out loud, Amazon Music, Audible. We're on there. So give us a check out. Go to anchor.fm/Buckeye-Zach, ZAK, that is. That also will be in the show notes if you want to support us in fiat monies, because I really want to expand this thing. I want to be able to afford to get all of y'all something. You can subscribe to us in some way, and we get you some merchandise or something, a T-shirt that has Andrew's bald face on it, or a sweatshirt that says Lysander Spooner, that has Lysander Spooner's face on it, that says "Fuck the state, the Constitution on no authority."
I've got a picture of Lysander Spooner pissing on the Constitution.
I do too, except for mine's a little.
I'd like to make that a T-shirt.
I've seen that. I've seen that. They use the same thing for the little guy. It's a little guy peeing on a gigantic block M and he's in an Ohio State shirt. I'm Buckeye Zach, by the way. So we don't give a damn about the whole state of Michigan. But yeah, I know that. I like that. I like that concept. Do that, except Lysander Spooner's pissing on the Constitution, which is communalism or communism.
Socialism, communism, statism, it's all the same thing.
It is
power with a central bank.
It is.
They'll regulate each other because they both have power.
And to sum up what we discussed here, that's essentially what we discussed here, was the fact that the government is inherently statist.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And we have the right to physically remove those bad neighbors.
Yeah.
So let's ostracize them, let's call them out, and let's divorce from it.
That's all I ever wanted. So,
with that, you got anything else in Andrew's corner?
check us out on Twitter. Check us out on Hunter Biden's Backhouse again. I already talked about that, but at AIConan90 on Twitter.
I'm at Legacy_Zach.
It's in the show notes. You know how to get to us.
Yeah, it's gonna be in the show notes, but I prefer you to jump on the YouTube and give me your perspective in the comments, honestly, because I feel that you can say a little bit more in the comments. I mean, YouTube's pretty fucked, but YouTube still gives us some aspect of freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Unlike Twitter, we'll see what Elon Musk does.
Yeah. So.
A compassionate conservative.
Us compassionate conservatives are checking out. Thanks for visiting us and thanks for watching.
Peace.
Peace.